everyone, and welcome back to People Jew Wanna Know podcast. This episode is brought to you by P&T Knitwear, a bookstore and podcasting studio operating out of the Lower East Side and owned by none other than former podcast and legend Bradley Tusk. Today, I have an absolutely iconic guest for you, one whose content you have surely come across before, Zach Sage Fox. Zach is truly an icon. He has created and shared some of the most viral content we have seen come out of the Israel-Hamas war, and he is an incredible leader for the Jewish people. He doesn't know that I feel this way about him, but I have to tell you that the more I get to know him, the more admiration I have for him. For someone who has been in the spotlight since being a teenager, essentially, he is the most humble, genuine, real dude. The phrase, no ego, amigo, is literally about Zach. I have done episodes with so many different people, some well-known, some not, and for how well-known Zach is, for how busy he is one of the easiest and most professional people to work with. He's a delight. I'm not just saying that. I just have so much respect for him because no matter his accomplishment, he has kept his humility, and I think that's incredibly admirable. Let me give you his bio so we can start to scratch the surface on him and his background. Zach Sage Fox is a Philadelphia native turned YouTube sensation. In high school, Zach had already landed himself a development deal with the Disney Channel. He went on to create 2 shows for the network in Los Angeles, where he then started a production company. His production company's studio relocated back to the East Coast when Fox attended the University of Pennsylvania, and Zach actually studied film and political communication. While a junior at Penn, Zach made his first feature film, which he wrote, directed, and starred in before selling it to Hulu, followed by another hit with Amazon Prime. In the years since, his business has become a New York City multimedia empire, both known for its award-winning film and TV division, where he's sold, written, directed, produced, and starred in projects for TLC, Amazon, and HBO Max. He's known as one of the pioneers in the new world of viral video and meme marketing with major brand partners like GoPuff, Kickstarter, What Do You Meme, Pioneer, Bud Light, MTV, Bloomberg, and more. On social media, Zach has millions of followers across TikTok and Instagram, where his videos on mental health, voting, and combating anti-Semitism have made him an actor-turned-viral activist, racking up billions of views for brands and nonprofits alike. He's even working on a musical and a book. Since October 7th, Zach has spearheaded and been the star of Facts for Peace, a social media initiative where his studio's viral videos combating Hamas propaganda and anti-Semitism have racked up well over 1 billion views and impressions, and have even been featured by the Israeli government, United Nations, and most recently the U.S. Congress during its hearing on college anti-Semitism with his global journalistic sensations, Gaza Graduation, and the Wild West Bank. Zach isn't just a content creator. He is really fucking smart, entrepreneurial, and a very hardworking guy. He has worked for decades now to be the person you see him on the screen. In this conversation, you'll hear Zach discuss his career, Jewish upbringing, stance on the current political climate, and even spill some fun Hollywood tea. While I've had many different interactions with Zach, what I took away from this conversation specifically is that Zach genuinely has a love for people. He loves talking to people, loves learning from people, loves making people laugh. It's a really great quality about him, and it's one that has guided his success for sure. There's a lot you wouldn't expect about Zach's life story, and I'm excited for you to hear it. And that's one of the many things that makes him one of the people Jew Wanna Know. Okay, please enjoy. Hey, Zach.
Hey.
Welcome to People Jew Wanna Know podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on. Okay, you are known as the Zach of all trades.
I am.
A term that you coined yourself.
I did. Yeah, I do a lot.
Tell us about yourself. What do you do and how did you get there?
Yeah. Okay. So I knew I wanted to be a comedian and a businessman at a really young age. So I figured out how to combine the two. I looked at idols of mine who were like big producers and also on camera, like Seth Rogen, Sacha Baron Cohen, these people that not only produce their own stuff, but produce for other people too. Because sometimes I would have ideas that had nothing to do with me, and sometimes I did. And so I knew I didn't only need to be in my own stuff, that I had like bigger dreams than just me being the face of my own journey, I guess. Yeah, I just started really young. Like I always say, I think one of the best things that can happen to someone, one of the luckiest things that can happen is if you know what you want to do at a really young age, because then you could just hit the ground running and like the world's your oyster. If you're like me and you knew what you wanted to do as early as elementary school, you can just start. And so you're going to like have your flubs and your failures and, your fun really young, and then start getting good, and then fail some more, and then start getting better, fail even more, and then eventually you start getting the success without even realizing it because you've just gotten good at your craft. What's that thing? My mom always talked about that. That's like, is it Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours?
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah. My mom always talked about that. Like I'm very much a product too of what my mom pushed out for me. But yeah, my mom was very like, wanted me to be a star, wanted me to be successful. So she was very much pushing that 10,000 hour idea and just get good over time. And so I started writing jokes literally in elementary school. I actually just went through a box of stuff yesterday, funny enough, that's in my like prized possession box. And like, I literally was writing sketches in elementary school. Starting from 5th grade, I was writing like Family Guy skits, like, again, stuff that didn't even have to do with me necessarily, but I was just writing jokes and writing skits and writing ideas. And then I really started performing, honestly, in elementary, middle school, like just in my classrooms. Like I went to a Jewish day school. And so there was so much opportunity for like different ways to perform and sketches and like rabbinics classes and stuff. I wasn't at like a yeshiva. So I tried to push the button with stuff. Like if I could get like a dick joke in that was really subtle and could somehow bypass the rabbinics class or something, that was like top goal. So it was always just like trying to make my friends laugh, trying to like be the class clown. And then eventually that turned into me starting to do stand-up by the time I was in 8th grade. I was 14. And my first time I ever did stand-up was at Helium Comedy Club in Philadelphia. I don't know why they let me perform there.
Yeah, that's like a pretty good club. Like,
I know.
I have to get in.
No, I look back on it and I'm like, how did that happen? I think I took a class and then the teacher like had some connection. So I've sort of like bypassed the regular process. And like literally this isn't even, I saw this in my box too last. I wish I had the video of it. It must be somewhere. Like if I was able to get that footage back from Ramallah, and I'm like starting to realize now that must be somewhere deep in one of my files. I was filmed my first time I ever did stand-up. I'm like 13 or 14, but I actually found the jokes from my first ever stand-up show and probably shows. I found my whole binder a couple months ago at my grandma's house.
Wait, what was the joke? Do you remember?
Oh my God, I have so many jokes. But I literally looked on it was like half of it, maybe even more than half was Jewish jokes. It was like Asian Jewish joke. It was just like a joke about Jews, like circumcision jokes, bar mitzvah jokes, like a Jewish Asian friend, like a joke about like, so, because I came from such a Jewish background and all my idols were Jewish. So it really was like just a huge part of my brand and identity. And I was rocking a massive Jew fro. Especially coming out of my bar mitzvah, it was very weird. And so much of my like comedic persona was around the fact that I had like the Jew fro of Jew fros. And this was like in the era of Superbad and like Seth Rogen and Jonah Hill. So like it was very much the time to also have a Jew fro, and a lot of my favorite comedians had Jew fros.
Yeah, and you also had a stint with Fat Camp. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, okay. So basically, I went to Fat Camp 2 summers, but the first summer I went was summer 2006. It was like right before my 7th grade year. And the story is that my business partner, my future business partner, was in the grade above me in our Jewish day school. And his mom was sending him to Fat Camp. And our siblings, we were like friendly, but like when someone's a grade above you in elementary school, it's like they're like 50 years younger than you. You're like friendly. We like were friends. We knew who each other was. But our siblings were in the same grade and they had a play date. And then so his mom was like, I'm sending Omri to Fat Camp. And then my mom was like, oh my God, my son's kind of fat. I'll send him to Fat Camp. And I wanted to go, like I did, like I was sent, but at the same time, I was like down to lose a little weight. Like I was very insecure. And a lot of my humor, it just as being the class clown, was like beating kids to the punch. If I could make the fat joke first.
The self-deprecating.
Yeah, it was like, no, I made the fat joke. Like I beat you. Like I'm not getting made fun if I made it. And so I got sent to Fat Camp, and that's when me and my business partner really bonded. And so it ended up being our production company. It's called Fat Camp Films. We started in high school. And we just got so lucky with the timing of things, like looking back, because it was like YouTube came out that year. Like literally we went summer 2006. We get back and I start doing stand-up. And then all of a sudden, like the whole world had just changed. Like I literally did a couple stand-up shows and all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, I could perform for 30 people or I could post something online and perform for a few thousand people, even a few hundred people. My first videos would get 800 views, like it was back,
pretty good.
That was back then. That was nuts. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
nuts. And so like I was just doing the math in my head of like, okay, why would, I can take the same jokes and I can do them online. And then also too, it's like, I just seen Borat and I was obsessed with the street style of things and just like interacting with people. Like I was already doing that for fun. Literally, like I would go to the mall with my friends in middle school and like ninth grade. And I would literally just go and play characters and mess with people at like the mall shops. I loved interacting with people and I knew I was good at it. And that thing you were supposed to have where you were supposed to be afraid to go up to someone and say whatever, I didn't have. I was very aware there was like a wire loose in the thing. And my friends were aware of that. So I was like, oh, okay, I have an advantage over also just going on a stage and telling jokes. I also have the chutzpah to go and say the things to people and go in character and put an accent and really push the envelope. And a lot of my idols were doing that too. Like I really grew up too. Also like The Daily Show was a big inspiration. Like the correspondence, I remember from a very young age watching Daily Show correspondence and being like, I could do that. I really think I could go out with a camera and do that. And so when we started our YouTube channel, like this was before the iPhone was a thing. Literally, I switched from Jewish day school to public high school in ninth grade. I switched to summer in between. So I did all 4 years of public school. But I switched because I had a film studio and a district access channel. And I was like, oh, I'll go do a show for the morning announcements and I can rent the camera equipment out on the weekends. That's really how it started. And I started doing the man on the street stuff because it was like, it's like low lift in some ways. I was like, I think I could just make stuff that looks like The Daily Show. All I need is a camera and a microphone. And my school's equipment was really good. Like I went to my public school specifically. They had a fantastic film program, which at the time was like the only way to get cameras and all this
This was
stuff.
in Philly?
This was in Philly. Yeah. I went to Conestoga High School. Yeah. And I started renting stuff out on the weekends. And like, at first, all my stuff was pretty much shot in school. And then eventually, like, I started taking my shows that I was doing on the district access channel where I was like literally plugging my shows. Like, hey guys, check out my show at 7 p.m. Like channel 4. And then very quickly, like YouTube was like starting to become a thing. You didn't really hear much about YouTube for the first year or two. But right around when Bieber got famous, it started you started hearing about it more in like 2008. And so I started uploading my full episodes to YouTube and I was like, wait a second, it got 600 live views on channel 4, but on YouTube it got 3,000, and that was crazy. And then I was like, maybe I should try uploading just a segment next time. And then I would upload a segment and that would get 5,000 views. And it was like, oh, okay, wait, the shorter, maybe I just do that. And so by the time I was like a junior in high school, I was just at that point, like, hey, I'm just going to do clips and I'm just going to do the man on the street stuff. And I'm going to stop doing the news anchor part of the show because I can actually go out with a camera. And then once I left my school, things started getting more viral too, because it was like, oh, I'm not just focused on this bubble. I can actually go hit the streets. And I looked so young too. So it was like, I'm this 15, 16, I looked like I was like 9. And I think that just helped really also disarm people when I go out and make street videos. They're like, who is this kid? But I was a little older than I looked always. And so, yeah, I really just started going and doing it. And by the time I was 17, I built a kind of a name for myself in the tri-state area. At the beginning of YouTube, things were like the algorithm. I don't even know if they were called algorithms back then. Who knows? But things were more localized, which is like ends up now that's like the opposite. Now it's like if you do a video, they're blasting it to every country they can. Like it's very not localized. But back then it was very localized. So, my videos were getting like 10, 20, 30,000 views, which was back then was nuts. Today, if I get that, I'm like crying. But like back then that was crazy. And so I started leaving the school, getting more views there. And then I went to a talent competition in New York called IMTA. And like Ashton Kutcher had come out of there, the Breaking Bad guy, Paul, what's his name? Aaron Paul. I think Mila Kunis came out of there. A lot of people came out of this talent competition. There are at least a lot of actors. And so I went there, but I hadn't acted ever before in my life. And so I'm thinking I'll go and I'll be meeting all these agents and managers in the hallways. And so I'll go and hand them like business cards that like,
smart,
have a link to my YouTube channel. Yeah. And like literally we're not talking QR code. We're talking, it would be like youtube.com/like Mr. Zachary Fox. Like literally just had the URL written out. And so I go and I'm like networking like crazy. And then I end up winning the whole actors competition for my division. And it was like the craziest time of my life. I lost my virginity that night. And it was just
to
great.
Meghan Trainor?
No. We had like a little thing later down the road. But not way later. Yeah, it was like 1920 when we were hanging out.
Okay, so that is true. If you come across Zach's Hinge profile, he has 2 truths and a lie. And one of the statements is, I hooked up with Meghan Trainor. And I read it and I was like, that's fucking true. Next.
Yeah. We had a little fling right before she ended up with a kid from Spy Kids. But yeah. So yeah, but I go to this talent competition and I end up winning the whole thing. Megan's awesome, by the way. Like such a she played me All About That Bass a year before it came out and before she had even moved to Nashville. And I sent it at that point I was living in LA. I was on Disney and I sent it to everyone I knew. I had no connects really in the music industry, but I just heard that song. I was like, this girl is going to be famous. Like this song is so good. And I don't love pop music the way I used to. I actually, as I've gotten older, I definitely dig more into the 60s, 70s, 80s kind of playlist. But I was so into pop at the time. And I just that song was so catchy. I came back to my friends in LA and I started playing it in literally for all my friends. And she was nobody. I was just like, this is the catchiest song I've ever heard in my entire life. It's so good. Anyway, so proud of her. She's crushed it. She's just had an awesome career and she deserves it. And she's just like a talent of all talents. Anyway, so yeah, I go to the talent competition and then literally I get a manager and it was my second time ever going to LA. And immediately, literally almost immediately, my life changed like that. It was the perfect storm because the Hollywood had not really been impacted by the internet yet. It's not like views were, we're in the era of Lost. It was still major views. Movies were crushing. It was right before everything crashed. This wouldn't last much longer. When I was on Disney, I think it was the first time I heard about Netflix. It was right when this was all happening.
Pre-streaming, yeah. YouTube must have been the only streamer at that time.
The only streamer. Yeah. Instagram was just fun. I remember getting Instagram and barely using it. I'm like, I don't need to upload pics. I'm a video guy. And it's funny, and you couldn't wrap your head around that things would change. It's you see Instagram and you're just like, well, this will be the photo app forever. Twitter will be the tweet app forever. You weren't, I don't know, at least me, I wasn't picturing how these things would evolve. But I go out to LA and it was just perfect timing because all these kid networks were aware that kids were starting to get followings online and they wanted to test the waters with a lot of these people. And I just had these honestly edgy if you saw the stuff I was doing back then, you'd be shocked I got on Disney, because it was pretty edgy stuff. Anyway, so I end up getting meetings with the top. I skipped every process you were supposed to hit. I literally went from being never having a footprint in Hollywood to I'm having meetings with the top executives, literally Gary Marsh and Adam Bodnett at the time, who were the top, the head of Disney Channel, and then the senior vice president of development. We're talking about the top people there. And I'm just there cracking jokes about my Jufro, my grandma, and they just loved my videos. So they all came to these rooms and I just really wooed them, not only as a performer, but they were really impressed that I had been producing stuff that was really high quality at that age. I think they were very impressed with me as a producer, even just as much of a talent. And so rather than just trying to plug me into a show, although I think they almost did, I auditioned for Dog with a Blog, and I think I was down to the final 1 or 2 people.
I don't even know that show.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So,
they needed you because clearly it didn't do well.
Clearly it didn't pop. I actually don't know. Maybe it did do well, but the Dog had a blog. They ended up giving it a development deal. And so under that deal, I created a pilot for my own sitcom that I produced, wrote, starred in. Then that didn't get picked up. But then at the exact same time that didn't get picked up, they gave me a prank show. To host and produce.
For you.
Perfect. It was very similar to what I was doing. And it's funny, I never done pranks in my life, but kind of the stuff I was doing was a little pranky. It was same thing with a microphone and out in the public. So it was a perfect fit. I wish it was online. It was called Just Kidding, and you can read all about it and see some clips online, but it was a Canadian acquired prank show. It was Just for Laughs, which is a huge show in Canada. And they acquired the rights and then turned into a kid version. But it's a Canadian owned, so it's not, none of the episodes are on Disney Plus, which is a bummer. So I have some downloaded personally from the time, but anyway, it was so cool. It was crazy. Literally my senior year, I'm going back and forth under this deal. The second I was 18, I moved out to LA and everything happened really quick. And, at the time it felt like the show didn't last that long. I was under this development deal maybe 2-3 years. And I remember at the time being devastated when the show didn't get picked up for another season, but it all sort of worked out. I really wanted to go to college. I'd taken some classes at UCLA. They had this sort of like hybrid program where you were like sort of full-time, sort of not. So like I was kind of at UCLA but I didn't love UCLA and I didn't love LA. And I was so far from my family and I love my family, so close with my grandmas and my family. And it's so funny. Those two Israeli guys just recognized me outside. And anyways, yeah, you guys can't see. There's like a full-on open window and we're like on the sidewalk in a very crowded area.
Yeah, the podcasting studio faces the street. And so anyone who walks by sees this recording.
This feels like Good Morning America or like David Muir where you can just like keep in and see him from the street. But so the Disney thing doesn't last that long. In the scheme, it didn't last like 10 years, like Wizards of Waverly Place. It wasn't one of those shows that lasted like forever, but it got me a really good start. It gave me huge credibility right off the bat because I had producing credit, which was just like for an 18, 19-year-old, that was nuts. I still can't believe they allowed me to have that much creative control. Like, unlike a lot of these horror stories you hear about kids, I did not have that. I was treated so well over at Disney. It was a bummer. I remember at the time, again, being upset. It got canceled after a couple of years.
It was a blessing. It was really a blessing.
It was a blessing because in my head at that point, I was like, I guess I'm not going to college. But I got like straight A's in high school. I worked my ass off in high school. My mom's an SAT tutor. I have terrible ADHD. So like to overcome the level of ADHD I had to get those grades was like not easy. Like my mom is literally an SAT tutor. I mean, like, which was very lucky, and she would sit down with me, like literally help me like study for my test and everything until like 3, 4 in the morning in high school. I barely slept. Yeah, I have like tremendous ADHD, which at this point in my life, I only see as really a blessing. It doesn't hurt me much. But in high school, that was a hard box to fit into. It's funny. And again, at the time, I wasn't sure if I was going to go to college. It was like, I look back, I'm like, I want to slap myself a little bit. I'm like, dude, what? And so I'm thinking, I don't like LA. Maybe I'll go to Tisch. And I apply to NYU on the Comet app. And my grandma was like, and you need to apply to the University of Pennsylvania. And I heard that, he doesn't even change. You write one more essay with the Comet app, the app Common, it's all one thing. I'm like, I don't know. And then my mom's like, and you're applying to Penn, you'd be crazy not to. We want you back on these coasts. I was like, I'm not going from LA to Philly. That seemed really weird to me.
Yeah,
to go.
It's a downgrade.
Yeah, it felt like a downgrade at the time, which is crazy. It was like an Ivy, and I also didn't think I'd get in. I really did not think I'd get in. It wasn't on my trajectory. I never thought about going to Penn, but I really was starting to get depressed in LA, honestly. When the Disney show ended, I was like devastated. Like I was like literally, and I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, I had 2.5 years under this development deal with Disney. I had a show that aired live. I got to create a pilot and like learn how to make a pilot at that young age. But at the time I was just like in bed eating ice cream and it got canceled for months. And it was really, really sad. And I went out and audition. I got so close to getting one of the leads in Neighbors. They liked me so much, they brought me to hang out with Seth Rogen and meet him after the audition, which
so you met your hero.
Never happened. Yeah, exactly. But so, I'm there. I literally got to like meet Seth and everything, but then I didn't get the role. So it was like a lot of things like that. I almost got the lead on the Goldbergs, the son, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you didn't get that. And so, there was about 6 months after my show got canceled, maybe even longer, a little less than a year. I'm just auditioning, not getting anything. And I'm just like devastated. I'm so far away from my family. My parents were like still in the throes of their divorce. And, my younger brother is autistic. So it was just like, it was hard to be so far removed from a lot of what was, in some ways you think it's like, oh, great, you want to get the hell out. And I at the time I thought that. I'm like, oh my God, they're getting divorced. I'm on the other side.
My cue to leave.
Yeah, my cue to leave. Great. But in some ways it's harder actually because you care so much and so it's hard to be away from your family when they're going through hard stuff. Anyway, so
you ended up at Penn.
I got into Penn and I still got into Penn. And I remember being like, okay, I'll think about it. Like, I really did. I'm telling you, like, I was just so young. I was 20 at the time. I started Penn a little late because the Disney's have taken up a chunk of time. And so I still almost didn't go. But I was thinking I'll go to Tisch. Like that, I got into Tisch and Penn. It was like, at the time, it made a little more sense. Like, film school still seemed like important, but it was right at the time when things were starting to change. It was like, I'm thinking to myself, how much am I really going to learn at film school? Like, I already know, like, can I really learn more than I've already taught myself just from living in this new era of being able to have camera equipment? And like, I've already produced a show. And so eventually I listened to my mom, my grandma, and I go to Penn. And the second I got to Penn, it was just like a glove that fit perfectly. It was like so my speed. I love that no one liked sports. And I just made such good friends. I was a founding father of API, which was awesome. And my dad was in API. My grandfather was in API. I made the best friends. And I was in this thing called Mask and Wig, which is this big musical comedy group that's about 200 years old. And, it was like a drag sort of, I don't know if drag's the right word, but like when I was there, it was all men. So the men would play women in the shows. We'd write our own musicals. And so I found this new love for musical comedy. And that was something I really didn't have much chops for. So I actually learned a lot. And I did a big stand-up group. So I got to start performing stand-up again in Philly and at school. And I just had the best time ever. And my major was amazing. Like I learned a ton. Like what was your major? I decided to be political communications.
Oh, look how that worked out for
which
you now.
Ended up, I used what I studied so much. Like I had a feeling, because I already had my production company. So basically, I still have this LLC. My plan was still to do all these big things, especially, and at the time I'm thinking maybe I'll be a Daily Show correspondent. Jon Stewart's like the biggest anti-Israel person ever right now. I would not join that show, nor would they probably want a Zionist like me on. But at the time, that was still a big focus. And also, I knew we were going to start doing more stuff with branded content. That was sort of the word you were hearing about. And so while I was at Penn, we were able to get a lot of contracts. And one of them was with this company called No Labels, which is this big bipartisan independent think tank in Washington. And it was exactly what I was studying. And it just ended up being such a great degree. Like I really learned a lot, but it also wasn't like, you didn't have a ton of like it wasn't the hardest major, but you learned a ton. It wasn't like the kind of major where, you needed to memorize a million things for a test. It was a lot of like learning very critical thinking skills about how to analyze media and politics and how to do political persuasion, and a lot of looking at like the classic ads from like the 1960 campaign, like Kennedy, and like how repetition works and can influence, and with The Morning in America with Reagan, like taking a lot of those political campaigns from these much older mediums. And so what I was able to do, which was really fun, was learn sort of the old media models, but persuasion and human persuasion doesn't change, right? Like,
so applying that to what you're going to make.
Completely new media.
Yeah.
And boy, did I not realize how much media was going to shift. Within 3 years after college, I'm 25 running the Mike Bloomberg presidential meme campaign, the first ever presidential meme campaign in history.
Dude, I know you, but I don't know so much about you.
Yeah.
I feel like every time I talk to you, I learn something new.
I've had a really cool career. I've done a lot of really awesome stuff.
You really have.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out something that I don't think the average listener would understand. And I pick up on this as a former child performer too.
Yeah.
There's an important decision that you made. I don't know why you made it. Maybe you can speak to it, but it's very clear to me that you made a choice not to stay under the umbrella of the big media companies. Like you could have been a Disney star. Like you could have let them run your career, but you made an intentional choice to have your own production company and to take control. And as a child performer, that is probably the smartest thing you could have done.
Yeah.
Because once you go under a Disney or a Nickelodeon, you really forfeit the rights to literally everything. You as a person are owned by a media entity. Yep. And I don't think a lot of child performers understood that until it was too late, but that's something you chose from the get-go.
Yeah, I give my family a lot of credit. My mom was both my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad's family, I come from like a line of my dad's a business person. My grandfather was a business person. His father was a business person. His father was a business person. My last name Fox was originally Fuchs with a U, and it means traitor, I think, in German or Russian or whatever.
No, it's definitely German. It's not Russian.
Fuchs. And then they, Ellis Island circumcised the U.
Honestly, for the best.
Yeah, probably. No, Fox is the coolest. It's the best when you go on dates with girls too, because it's like I feel like girls, whether they admit it or not, are thinking about the last name of the guy, and I'm like, Fox goes with anything. Like you could literally, your name could be like Gertrude, and like Gertrude Fox isn't that bad. Yes. But so my mom like always told me that like run your own life, be your own boss. My great-grandfather, her grandfather, I talk about him all the time now with this Jewish stuff. He's the most amazing man. And I got to meet him, he died when I was like 7. So I did get to know him for a bit. And I remember him vividly. My great-grandparents on my mom's side literally are the grandparents. They look, sound exactly the same as Tommy from Rugrats' grandparents. That's what they looked like. That's what they sounded like. They were the same dynamic with the Yiddish and the, hey. Anyway, he came to this country and my great grandfather at 13 years old, and he wasn't allowed in because he was Jewish and from a certain area, they weren't letting people in because they had quotas. And so he ends up going to Brazil at 13 years old by himself to go meet some like distant family. And he is just an entrepreneur pushing around a fruit cart, and then he starts his own business. And his advice was always to my mom, work for yourself, always work for yourself, always work for yourself, be in control of your own destiny. And so he pushed that on her. She pushed that on me. My dad's family is very entrepreneurial. So I always knew I wanted to be a businessman. I did not fully appreciate it to the full extent until the last couple of years when I'm just like, I am living the best life ever, to the point where like someone asked me the other day, just on Elon Gold's podcast, and he was like, would you go on SNL? And I was like, I'm not. It's funny. That used to be my dream. But now I think of the idea of going into an office every day and having a boss. And it just seems so hard for me to wrap my head around. Because like when you run your own company, sky's the limit. I wake up every morning and it just feels like I could close the biggest deal ever. Anything can happen. I can do whatever I want. I plan my own schedule. I can travel whenever I want. I'm going to go to Israel for like a month pretty much in the winter and work from there. Like I can do whatever I want. Like I have so much freedom and it's so hard to even contemplate giving away that freedom. And especially in this new remote world of work from home, I'm obsessed. Like we had a studio actually right around Soho before COVID. And I remember when COVID happened, I was devastated. I missed being with my team and everything and all the people who work for me. And now I'm like, I couldn't even imagine going back to that. I just love, like this morning, my business partner were supposed to meet up at our workspace. And I was just like, I had a date late last night. Then I was up editing. I was like, I'm going to work from home. I worked in the dog park like for like 2 hours today. I was just in the dog park on my email doing the same amount of work I do from anywhere. So I'm glad. And honestly, that same advice like my great grandfather gave, and I've just been passed down to me. Like if you can be your own boss, go for it, especially in this media landscape. If you want to be in media, if you're an actor, not to depress you, this is a really tough time to be an actor. You want to be a writer, really tough time to be a writer. You want to be a director, really tough time to be a director. In the scheme of the last 100 years of history, Hollywood history, will that change? Potentially. There might be some new model that really makes life better for everybody. But right now, that model is not working very well. Being an entrepreneur of a media company, sky's the limit, baby. This is the era to go do it. And you can grow something super unique that, like, why be on the Daily Show? I can be my own Daily Show. The things I'm doing right now, I have so much freedom and I get to say whatever I want and do whatever I want. And I get to find financing however I want rather than having some big media umbrella. And again, I'm not saying if SNL, if I auditioned and I got it, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. But like, to be under one of those big media corporations like NBC, I'm not saying who I'm voting for in the election, but they clearly are being given orders to make Kamala Harris the president of the United States. They are. Like they're part of MSNBC. There's an umbrella there and they're taking orders, and then all the content has to come from those orders. What I get to do is I get to go, okay, I care about X, Y, and Z. I'm going to go find nonprofits or businesses. I'm going to go find partnerships that align with my values rather than having values pushed onto me that I have to produce content for.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to ask you, what percentage of your time you think goes towards working on content and projects that don't deal with you as a persona, like as your own platform, versus how much of your work time goes towards building your pages?
It's a really good question.
Do you even know?
Might be 50-50. Might be 50-50. I have an amazing business partner, and we really are a two-headed dragon. There's a point in my career now I'm getting more speaking gigs, and I'm writing a book this year. And
wait, you are?
I am, but hush, hush. But yeah, like I'm my own personality, and almost everything runs through our company, but it all feeds stuff back to the company. I've done stuff where I've done speaking gigs now, and then all of a sudden I meet somebody who runs this big nonprofit, and then I push them into the company. So as much as I can, I try to funnel everything through the company. Every now and then I'll get a speaking gig. It doesn't have to do with production. It doesn't run through the company. But I would say 95% of my focus is on Fat Camp Films and really building something big that makes an impact.
So I want to switch us to talk about Facts for Peace, because that was yet again another thing that I didn't know you were behind.
Yeah.
What is Facts for Peace? How did you start it? And what are you excited about with it?
Yeah, Facts for Peace is just one of the nonprofit partnerships we have. We have several nonprofit partnerships. And so it's just another group that we align with and that we've been able to put our production company behind, just really come up with ways to get the facts out there. And again, we have a lot of nonprofit partnerships now. So basically, it just goes back to, how is this nonprofit trying to educate young people, whether it's around the world? And we have deals too now with not just Jewish nonprofits. We've formed some real deals with like Christian nonprofits and Muslim nonprofits that are aligned with the peace cause. It's just been an amazing year of really getting to stretch our muscles as activists and work behind causes we care about. Me and my business partner, it felt like destiny a little bit. We met at Jewish day school. He's Israeli. It was not something we talked about a ton, him being Israeli. Like his sister was in the IDF. He's Sephardic. His mom's not even Israeli. He's half Israeli. His mom's the one who's not Israeli. And she basically lives in Israel half the year and is a big activist with that. So it was just something we didn't talk about a ton. And then all of a sudden 10/7 happens. And it was like, we're not afraid to open our production company doors to back Israel. We care so much about this place. We care so much about anti-Semitism. And we're so lucky that our ancestors fled the pogrom so that their kin could have ground to run on as Jews and could be free and successful and prosperous Jews. So we just hit a moment. We were like, if we don't stand up for what we believe in right now and try to make an impact, then what the hell was this all for?
Yeah.
And so many of our idols were so silent.
The same comedians that you love, that you grew up with, are now neither here nor there on Israel and don't. Seth, he doesn't think there needs to be a state for Jewish people.
No,
he said that openly on interviews. And I'm like, well, yeah, when your ass is in America. And
you're in a mansion in the Hollywood Hills.
Sure, you don't need Israel. But I came as a Jewish refugee to America. Like, I know.
Where are you from?
I'm from Ukraine. So I know what it means to have a Jewish state and
war.
to be a refugee.
War,
no, I'm taking L's since 2022.
Wow,
it's straight L's.
Yeah.
And something that we have to talk about it. I feel like we can't not talk about it is your time in the West Bank.
Yeah.
So
everybody loves talking about that.
Of course. But I have to imagine that when you went to speak to the Palestinians on the street, you weren't like, I'm a Jew working for Facts for Peace. You're pretending like you're just a random person, not Jewish.
Yeah.
What haven't you shared about that trip that you can talk to us about?
I feel like I've said almost everything possible. The real thing, it's funny because everybody asked me about that. And I didn't realize how nuts I was until that experience.
Of course.
It's funny. We talked about going back to why I started doing the street stuff when I was like 13, 14 years old. And it was because I knew that thing you were supposed to have where my friends would be like, I'm not going to go up to that person. That would make me uncomfortable. I never had that. And so that's why I leaned into doing these bolder street things. And it was just one of those moments. I guess the one thing I could say was that also felt like destiny, where it was like, oh, that skill, that gift I had. And it's one of the reasons I went. I was like, I wasn't that afraid to go. And there's a reason that like no journalists have gone, because they were clearly either a combination of being afraid or they knew they were going to hear things that went against the media narrative that all Palestinians are completely separate from Hamas or that they don't support Hamas. Clearly from the polls that had come out, by the way, even before I shot my video, my video has just confirmed the polls, by the way. I don't look at it as like I proved something major. I think I added video context to something that other polls and studies had proven.
It's wishful thinking that most Palestinians don't support.
Yeah, and even by the way, I went there being like, oh, I hope those polls are wrong, because it's one thing to read a poll. It's another thing to see the faces and to hear it. But yeah, it just felt like destiny. It was like that thing, that gift I was given. I felt like this is a moment where I can really go and take an L for the Jewish people. And it was just really important for me to do it. And, I had a feeling when I left that day it would make a big impact. I knew I was going to do this Wild West thing. I come from such an entertainment first background that the activism's new, or the journalism, whatever you want to call it. I would call that more journalism, because I really don't think I went in with any kind of Jewish agenda. I really think I just went asking
interviewed.
Very simple questions, by the way. I didn't push. I wasn't like, what do you think of, I'm really just like, what do you think of Hamas? What do you think of the war? What do you think of peace? Like very normal kind of questions. But I thought of the Wild West element first. I was like, it was almost a minute, and I'm obviously very glad I went with the creative decision I made. There was 1 minute, I think my first idea was to make it, no one knows this, I almost went with West Side Story. I think I was going to call it a Wild West Bank story. And I was thinking about doing some element with that. And I'm really glad. I think it might have been literally the night before I came up with the Wild West Bank element. I was like, ooh, wait, yeah, I'm in the desert. It's got this sort of like, right, I'm in Israel, I'm in the West Bank. There's already this sort of like cowboy energy I can bring to it. There'll be so many great music libraries I can pull a sort of dark Western tinge from. And then when I left, the crazy thing was when I left, then we like literally got chased out of the West Bank. And it felt like we were in like a Wild West movie. And so just like I was just being on the ground and having lived that experience, it felt so out of wild that all of a sudden I was like, I would imagine this footage is going to feel as Wild West to people as it felt to me in the moment. And I had a feeling it was going to go pretty viral. Did I know exactly how viral it was going to go? No. And did I know how much media attention it was going to get? No. And did I know how much it was going to give me Jewish street cred? Probably forever. It's like if you're in a gang and you get shot,
Yeah.
It's like, it really gave me like Jewish street cred. Yeah, it's just so funny. It really like upped my speaking gigs. All of a sudden started to open up. My stand-up shows, my follower count went way up. It seemed like that moment really put me on the map in a way. It was such a beautiful way to have one of the more prominent moments in my career, because I really felt like I captured something that was actual journalism that if I didn't go there, I think we actually would have had a bit of a PR, like we would have been further back in the PR war. I just think that the video footage I captured, I think actually made a difference in the perception of the war. And not that like Palestinians are bad and Israel is good, but I think just like, oh, wow, there is deep indoctrination, even in the parts of the Palestinian territories that are seen as the more moderate part. But there was not one Israeli, no IDF soldier. Because by the way, I also thought I was going to get to Ramallah, and I thought there would be IDF soldiers there. There wasn't one. There's IDF when you first cross the border, and that's it. And then I didn't see a single Jew for half a day until I got back. That would surprise me. Even when I got there, I thought, okay, one of the reasons I didn't feel so scared is because I thought, okay, there's IDF people around. I'm not like, like Israelis can't just go across, but they're IDF soldiers, and there weren't any. And also they're saying they're under occupation. There's not a single IDF soldier around. That was quite odd.
Did you feel real fear or no?
I didn't. And I really realized at that moment I was nuts.
But honestly, it worked to your benefit, because I think if you got scared, it would have hurt you more. And they could see it in your eyes. If you let them see that you're doing something wrong in their eyes, they're going to double down.
Yeah, completely.
So the fact that you played it cool, like,
totally
what are you talking? I'm just asking questions.
That
totally was the right move.
Yeah, I was really proud of myself. Like, I look back at that footage and I was like, I really kept a good head on my shoulders. And I was
watching your eyes when it happened, because there's that moment when the cameraman's filming you and somebody comes out and they're like, wait, why? Where are you from? Like, why are you asking?
And I was on the delete. By the way, I didn't know. So like that footage got deleted forcibly. And that was the only reason they didn't kill us. And it took me months to get it back, and like a bajillion cyber hacker attack. Like I really fought to get that footage back.
Did you Google like cyber hackers?
No,
like how did you find someone who?
I didn't even know. Someone DM'd me and was like, "It's every now and then. It doesn't happen often, but you can get footage back on an SD card that's deleted." And it was this whole process of learning about cyber hacking, and because I didn't know. It's not like an iPhone where it goes to the cloud. It was on an SD card, and so I really didn't know that. And then I guess it took about 2.5 months and I got it back. But I didn't even know that my cameraman filmed long enough where you actually saw the people in the camera. So the crazy thing was when I was on the news telling the story of what had happened, I never even thought, God willing, I get that footage back. I didn't know if it would be on camera. I didn't realize. So when I'm seeing that footage retrieved for the first time after months, it was like seeing a ghost. I'm like, whoa, you can see the people in the background gathering other Palestinians to gang up on me. And then you see the guy coming to the camera off. You can see it in his eyes how much he hated me. And I didn't even say what side I was on. I'm just asking very normal questions. Like, I think they really started getting pissed off when I started asking the refugee questions. But that was such a fair, like, they're literally in designer, this woman at least was in designer clothing in a very built up area of Ramallah talking about, and I was very proud of myself skill set wise. I remember it being like, the fact that I thought to then figure out what kind of clothes you're wearing. Oh, design, what kind of hat? And I did it in a way where I don't think she exactly knew where I was going with it. And I was very complimentary. And I'm not trying to come off and like be a dick to anyone. I was just genuinely like trying to understand how someone could call themselves a refugee in designer clothing when they live in a nice apartment, when their grandparents were quote unquote refugees from a place that was like 15 minutes up the road.
Yeah.
It's not like you were kicked out like Jewish. There's no people that understand refugee status more than Jews. We've been refugees almost everywhere we went. We're not kicked out 15 minutes from the house and asked to move down the street. We're kicked out of continents often. I thought that was the right train of thought to go. And the question about the Hadid sisters, I think, was very eye-opening, which is like, you really think that they deserve to be refugees? They're worth millions of dollars, like tens of millions of dollars. Do you think, one, they deserve to be refugees, and two, that if they had the chance to come back here, they would? Like, instead of You think they would leave their Beverly? And it was really, you could see the delusion. That woman really believed that. Like the Hadid sisters just waiting in their Beverly Hills mansion, their New York penthouse. They're just waiting to come back. And they really believed it. And that was, I think, really telling.
No, I'm so glad you did that. I'm more glad that you're okay. It's not a place you can come back to, at least for the near foreseeable future.
Yes. Next time I go, I will have a lot of security next time.
Now, it's an interesting, full circle moment for you because you started out interviewing people on the street as a crazy teenager.
Yeah.
And now here you are interviewing people on the street as a very talented producer and actor and author. Yeah,
but
maybe?
It's at 10,000. It's at 10.
Well,
one, already an author. It just came out yesterday. I have to post it. I want to wait till after Halloween, but the Jerusalem Post actually just wrote a big op-ed on me. And the whole point was to announce I'm about to be a contributor. So I'll be writing a monthly or bi-monthly op-ed.
Great.
At the Post. Yeah.
So you've interviewed a lot of people on the street. And I was thinking about this, you find these people who clearly have ridiculous beliefs. Like when you go to Washington Square Park, the odds of you running into somebody who is going to say something crazy about Israel are high.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying
it's more than not.
What is the reality of the situation? You've talked to so many people at this point. Where do you think this is headed for the Jews?
I actually have a very clear, I think, sense of the problem, which is misinformation more than malice. There are bad people and bad actors out there, but most people come in and it's, I don't have the exact phenomenon. It's probably what I'll be writing more about in my book and in my op-eds in the upcoming months. But the fact that we live in a time period right now, I don't know if Gen Z is, I hate using the word dumb, but I don't know. And I would love for older people from other generations to let me know if this is a new phenomenon. But the fact that we have so many young people who are on the streets with these very radical opinions, and they haven't looked up much, if anything. They come in, they have the keffiyehs, they have the COVID masks on, and they're out there saying Israel should be completely obliterated. You saw it in that video I did with 10/7 survivors versus deniers. Literally, I interviewed that NYU guy who's literally like, oh my God, yeah, and Iran's missiles didn't blow up Israel. Such a bummer. Isn't that so? And he's like an NYU junior. And then you start pushing him on the facts. He didn't know Israel left Gaza in 2005. He didn't know there's not actually apartheid. He didn't know about Hamas's terror tunnels. He didn't know that there were still hostages. You're willing to make that such a radical statement and you don't even know anything? I have people all the time, though. I have friends who debate the COVID vaccine and vaccines in general, and they'll be like, what's your opinion? I'm like, I don't know enough about that to have a strong opinion on that. I don't know. Do vaccines cause autism? I don't know. I don't think so. But I don't know enough. So that's not an argument I'm going to have a strong opinion on. It's not my forte. Same with environmentals. There's just a lot. Not everybody has to be an expert on everything, but you certainly should not be out there screaming with radical opinions about millions of people dying if you have absolutely nothing to do with it and you haven't even looked up the basic facts about the fucking thing. That's a lot of the problem. TikTok is a major part of the problem. They get most of their news from TikTok, young people. I will say this till my last breath. TikTok is trying to influence young minds. They are trying to poison Gen Z on the West and Israel and any sort of democracy. Why wouldn't they, by the way, when you have people being like, well, why wouldn't they? China's the worst bad faith actor out there. If they built this social media app with 1 billion followers probably from Westerners, why wouldn't they poison an entire generation? They have the perfect opportunity to do it. And unfortunately, by the way, I know a lot of Jews like Trump. Unfortunately, one of my biggest critiques of him right now, actually, is that he plans to unban TikTok, which is ironic since he's the first one to ever even propose a TikTok ban. But under Trump, I'm worried next week if he wins, actually. And it's something almost no one's talking about. My biggest quarrel with Trump is that he talks about that. I'm not quite sure he understands how bad it is. So
maybe he just doesn't care. Honestly, on the issue, on the totem pole of issues, TikTok is not the number one right now.
I know. I think there's just some problem with, and I'm so independent, I'm not saying who I'm going to vote for, but I'll probably split my ticket to some capacity like I normally do. I really try to look at candidates rather than an actual party. I don't give a crap about either one of these parties. They're both parties change constantly. If you're one of these people who what bothers me more than anything, honestly, in the entire world, is people who they're just I will copy and paste whatever the Democrats say, and that's my opinion on anything. Or versa, the Republicans. It's a little different. And so you don't see as much with the Republicans right now, because I actually think the Republicans have been much less homogeneous since Trump took over. You have people that are more
there's a fringe.
There's totally, my mom and dad share could not have more differing political views, but yet they I think they're both leaning towards potentially voting for him, but they come from completely different sides. So it's that party actually is where Democrats, one of the things that annoys the hell out of me is just the copy and pasting of the platform. And you see it with even comedians that I respect so much, like Jon Stewart, Howard Stern. You're like, how did you get to this point where it's just like anything one party says is your opinion? Like, if you're a smart, informed person who has their own belief system, you should have some issues that align more with one side, some align with more the other. And every election, you should say, which candidates am I going to get the most out of in this particular election? And which party has more of the issues that I care about, that I want addressed in the next few years, knowing there will be a midterm in 2 more years. And then you should reevaluate where things have been. If I voted for the Republicans, did I get my vote out of that? If I voted for the Democrats, did they do what I wanted them to do? And maybe I should consider. Also, if you are aligned with a party, sometimes that party, if they hold power too long, they need to be voted out for a little bit so that they can go make the changes they need to, take the note from the voters, and then go and make the changes you want to see.
There's no incentive to then improve. Because if you know you're getting voted in anyway. Yeah, I understand.
Completely. Who knows what's going to happen? This will come out after the election. Yeah. Who knows? Oh my goodness. I'm really nervous though. I do think that there's like an arrogance problem with Gen Z. They also somehow actually think they know everything, which is nuts. And like, I'm not that much older than Gen Z. I'm like, basically, I'm like, we're on the cusp of millennial and Gen Z. I don't know. TikTok needs to be sold to an American company. I think if Kamala wins, she probably will not change the Biden plan to push, right now TikTok is set to be banned or be sold to an American company. That's amazing. I actually think that's probably really the best. Important. I think that's the best thing the Biden-Harris administration has done, actually, at least from my standpoint and the issues I care about. Whereas Trump was the first one to propose a TikTok ban. And I actually respect Biden for following through with that. But then Trump goes and reverses it. I don't know if he really believes it, if he's on TikTok and he's dancing and having fun.
I don't know what points that scored him, honestly, to get voters. I don't think that's the issue to make a statement.
I don't know.
I don't understand how it works.
But it's a major issue and it's barely been talked about in this campaign.
Yeah.
Like barely been talked about. I wish it was, because I do wonder if Trump actually was pushed harder on and if he would go back to his original stance. I'm not sure. So I think those are the caveats of either person winning. I think if Kamala wins, maybe on the information side of things, you might actually see a shift if TikTok is really gone for good, because Instagram, X, they're not perfect. They have anti-Semitism on there. There is not an algorithm, though, that is intentionally pushing down Jewish voices and pro-Israel voices and pro-Western voices. I have 1.1 million followers on TikTok. I have 150,000 on Instagram. My videos on Instagram go mega viral. My videos since 10/7 on TikTok, I don't know if I've had a video. I think I had one video reach over 100,000 views. It's like a joke. It's like it's very clear what's happening. And most of them get taken down. Like, I mentioned the Uyghurs in one video. Once it got taken down immediately. Like literally within 10 minutes, it got taken down because I mentioned the word Uyghurs in the video. And the whole thing was it was like the most ironic thing. The video was called No Jews, No News. And the whole point was that if it's not about the Jews, it's not in the news. And I literally criticized like, hey, have you heard about the Muslim Uyghurs? No, I wonder why. It's almost like China's suppressing that, taken down the video. Of course, we don't have that in America, by the way. People call our country, we're heading in a sort of fascist direction, or we're totalitarian. We don't have anything. We have total free speech in this country, practically. Is it always perfect free speech? No. Are we fighting for it every day? Yes, but we still have our free speech in this country. What you're seeing on other platforms is that Jews are just such a small people. It's hard for us to rev up the algorithms with such small numbers, whereas other religions, especially Christianity and Islam, don't seem to have that same issue. So anyway, I think it's a catch-22. I think there will be a shift with whoever wins the presidency, and I think that will have an impact on Jews around the world, because this election, I think, actually is going to be...
It matters, yeah.
We're just going in two completely different directions with Harris and Trump. Obviously, Trump is going to let Israel do it at once more. Harris is definitely going to tie their hands more. Israel is going to be in a completely different situation based on what happens, and anti-Semitism in America is going to be. I do think Trump and Vance will probably make it so that, and not even just them, I think that the Republicans will pass these bills that will make it so that these schools don't get aid from the government directly if they don't stop anti-Semitism.
I don't think so. I don't think they care enough.
See, that's the thing. I think that'll get passed. The question is, right, will they just be like, okay, we'll just go to Qatar for funding. Yeah, so maybe it won't make a difference. But unless more Jewish celebrities speak out, which it doesn't seem like they want to, the Jews are not in a fantastic place. We're going to need a lot more media work. And so companies like mine, I hope there's more companies like mine that are thinking about this and forming partnerships with nonprofits and other orgs that they really think they can make a difference because the facts are all on our side. There are 56 Muslim and Arab countries, and there is a dot on the map the size of New Jersey that is a Jewish state. Anybody who says that little dot shouldn't exist, fuck them. They're an anti-Semite.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you don't think that we can have one fucking dot in the desert, then you don't like Jews. You don't think Jews should have a place of protection, and there's nothing more to it. So like any fact outside of that is somewhat irrelevant in a lot of ways. The Palestinians could have had a state 8 different times over the last 100 years, and the Arabs turn it down initially, and then eventually the word Palestinian starts popping up more in the 60s. And as Golda Meir lovely said, the most famous Palestinian is probably me. Like Jews were Palestinians too. And it wasn't, the word Palestinian was like, it was a British colonial mandate term. So the whole thing's just like, we have all the facts on our side. And so we just have to figure out how to get them out. And I call on my peers in Hollywood and my peers in the influencer world that are Jewish. You don't have to do what I'm doing, where I've devoted a lot of my time to this. But if you're not posting at least once a month or once every few weeks on behalf of your people, then you're shooting yourself in the foot because they want you dead whether you speak up or not.
Yeah, they'll come for you too.
They'll come for you too. It doesn't matter. Like these Hollywood sitting in their mansions in the hills, like they're one gunshot away from a terrorist coming and killing them because they're Jewish, whether you speak up or not. They just want to kill Jews. We have to speak up. And our ancestors did not flee persecution for us to be silent right now. They just didn't.
Preach, yo, preach. And speaking of social media, how can people connect with you and learn more about your work?
Awesome. Find me on social media, Zach Sage Fox.
Perfect. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Privilege.
Of course.
Last question for you, one that I ask every single guest. Who would you like to nominate for People Jew Want to Know podcast?
Oh, have you interviewed Frankie Bernstein?
Not yet.
Okay. He's probably top of my head because we're hosting a Halloween party right after this. But he's awesome.
Wait, what are you going to dress as?
I actually have a fantastic outfit. I was going to say I shouldn't spoil it, but this will probably come out way after.
Yes.
I'm being peace in the Middle East. Yeah.
Oh my God. How do you dress?
I got like a hippie outfit, and then I got like a Peace in the Middle East t-shirt, but I like matched it and sewed it so that it's one thing with like that. And I'm bringing the Jew fro back.
There we go. Listen, thanks for doing this.
Of course. Thank you for having me. You're the best. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And that's it. I need to go nap. I got a Halloween party I'm throwing. Awesome. We did it.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Be the first to hear our episodes by subscribing to People Jew Want to Know wherever you get your podcasts. And for exclusive content, follow us on Instagram at People Jew Want to Know.